Welcome, dear listener, to another deep dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into an ancient text that literally promises freedom, the Kaivalya Upanishad. Prepare to have some fundamental assumptions about yourself and reality, gently yet powerfully challenged.
Absolutely. We're going to unravel the Kaivalya Upanishad, a profound yet remarkably succinct text from the Atharva Veda. It offers a really radical, liberating perspective on identity, reality, and what it truly means to be free.
Yeah, think of it as a direct transmission of secret knowledge, right?
Right.
Designed to cut through the deepest layers of human ignorance.
Exactly. That's the aim.
Our mission for this deep dive is, well, to unpack this secret knowledge, not just intellectually, but to really get at its core philosophy and everyday language. We'll critically examine the deeply ingrained assumptions it challenges, and there are quite a few.
Oh, definitely.
And most importantly, I think, discover its surprisingly potent relevance for our complex modern lives.
It really is surprisingly relevant.
It feels like a shortcut to understanding something truly transformative, promising those aha moments you won't want to miss as we explore the very essence of liberation.
Looking forward to it.
So let's start with the Kaivalya Upanishad itself. For our listeners maybe familiar with the broader Vedantic tradition, what's the specific context? What's the unique flavor of this particular text?
Well, okay. While it's often categorized as a minor Upanishad, which can sound a bit dismissive, its insights are anything but minor. They're profound.
Right.
The Kaivalya, coming from the Atharva Veda, it delivers nothing short of, well, the ultimate wisdom. It's presented as a direct, intimate dialogue
Between who?
between the sage Ashvalyana, who's a seeker of profound truth, and the creator deity, Brahma himself.
Wow, okay. Straight to the top.
Pretty much. And that format immediately elevates it, you see. It's not just a philosophical discourse. It feels like a direct transmission. It's designed to dispel avidya, that fundamental ignorance about our true nature, and reveal the ultimate truth of existence.
Which it says is,
Pure consciousness, utterly beyond all form, all duality. It really cuts straight to the chase, no messing around.
and central to this liberation is this concept of Kaivalya. Now, when I first hear that term, meaning aloneness or isolation, honestly, it conjures images of loneliness, of being cut off. But I sense there's a radical reframe happening here.
You're absolutely hitting on a crucial point. It is the ultimate aloneness, but it's vital. We understand it correctly. It's not isolation in the sense of a painful lack or, yearning for connection.
Okay.
Rather, it's a profound self-sufficiency, a state of complete inner wholeness where the craving, the need for external completion just vanishes.
So the need goes away.
Exactly. The Upanishad clarifies it as absolute liberation. It's the realization that nothing is truly missing, that existence itself, just as it is utterly enough. You realize you are inherently sufficient, already complete. Imagine a state where your rootedness in your own being is so profound that the external world can neither add to nor subtract from your fundamental peace.
That's huge.
That, for the Kaivalya Upanishad, is true Kaivalya. It's freedom from neediness, not freedom from connection necessarily.
That's a radical reframing of self-identity then. It collapses our entire sense of individual boundaries in a way.
In a fundamental way, yes.
And at the very core of this, for anyone familiar with Vedantic thought, is that declaration. Atman is Brahman. This is foundational.
Absolutely foundational. The bedrock.
But how does the Kaivalya Upanishad address the apparent contradiction? I mean, between this idea of oneness and our undeniable daily experience of individual personalities, distinct suffering, unique choices, we feel separate.
And that's the central paradox it asks us to confront head-on. Atman, as you know, refers to the individual self, your deepest essence beyond personality, thoughts, body.
Right, the inner core.
And Brahman is the supreme reality, the universal eternal consciousness, the ultimate ground of all existence.
The big picture.
Biggest picture imaginable, yes. So when the Upanishad declares Atman as Brahman, it's asserting that the individual soul is not separate, in essence, from the universal eternal consciousness. It's a direct statement. Our innermost self is the ultimate reality.
Wow.
The apparent differences, our personalities, bodies, thoughts, the diverse world we perceive, these are understood as temporary, illusory superimpositions. Veils of ignorance, or Maya as it's called.
Illusory, like not real.
Not ultimately real. Think of it like a wave in the ocean. The wave has a distinct form, a location, a lifespan, right?
Sure.
But is the wave separate from the ocean? No. Its essence is water. It is the ocean, just appearing in a particular form for a time.
Okay, that helps. So the Upanishad isn't denying my individual experience of being, me.
Not denying the experience, no, but it's inviting you profoundly to see its deeper unified source, to see the ocean in the wave.
So it's about realizing that what we perceive as separate is actually part of a seamless whole. That's a profound thought. It goes against so much of our everyday fragmented
It
experience.
really does.
But then how do we move from merely understanding that intellectually, maybe grasping the wave analogy, to actually experiencing it? Because the Upanishad makes it clear, doesn't it, that liberation isn't about external acts or rituals.
Absolutely clear on that, which is another common assumption in many spiritual paths, that doing certain things externally will fix things internally.
Right. So what's the real path it describes? If not rituals, then what?
It definitively shifts the focus from external performance to radical internal transformation.
Hmm.
The true path for the Kaivalya Upanishad involves several key, intricately woven components. They work together.
Okay. What are they?
First, there's faith, or strata. Now, this is crucial. It isn't blind belief in dogma, and it's definitely not the arrogance of rigid logic that refuses to consider anything beyond its current limited understanding.
So what is it then?
The source describes it beautifully as a tender courage.
Tender courage. I like that.
Isn't it great? It's the courage to open oneself to the unknown, to trust in a possibility that transcends ordinary verifiable logic. It's like, as you hinted earlier, a seed trusting its potential to grow into a mighty tree, even when it's buried in darkness, without yet seeing the sunlight.
Yeah.
Without this initial openness, this willingness to explore beyond the familiar, the journey doesn't even begin. You need that little spark of courage to step off the beaten path.
I love that tender courage idea. It's not about believing something specific necessarily, but about having the courage to explore, to be vulnerable, to maybe finding a deeper truth.
Exactly. It's an attitude,
Yeah.
an orientation to the heart.
Yeah.
And as this initial faith matures, as it deepens through practice and reflection, it naturally transforms into devotion or bhakti.
Okay, devotion. How does that manifest?
This is when your entire existence begins to feel enveloped in, well, the divine, for lack of a better word. It turns your whole life into an act of love for existence itself. The source describes it as turning one's entire existence into one's beloved, where everything around you, literally everything, begins to shine as the face of the divine.
That sounds intense.
It can be, but in a beautiful way. It dissolves the feeling of separation. Life becomes softer, more flowing. It transforms even the most ordinary acts, listening to a friend, walking in nature, preparing food, into something sacred.
Because you're seeing the divine in those things.
Precisely. It's a profound shift in how you relate to absolutely everything. It's not just about designated holy times or places anymore.
Following this, you mentioned renunciation, or tyaga. Now, this is a term often misunderstood, isn't it? It conjures images of giving up all your possessions, heading for a cave.
That's the common stereotype, yes. And the Upanishad, particularly when you look at later commentaries like Osho's, which you mentioned, offers a far more nuanced and frankly more practical view.
How so?
It's not primarily about giving up possessions externally, though that might happen for some. It's fundamentally about releasing one's hold on them internally.
Ah, the inner grip again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an inner release,
Mm.
a relaxation of the grip of attachment, which is what causes suffering. This leads to a profound lightness and peace. The focus isn't on the object itself, money, relationships, status, opinions.
Right.
The focus is on the clinging, the inner attachment that binds us. Releasing that makes the soul light.
That distinction is crucial. So it's an internal posture, not necessarily an external act. It's not about giving up your iPhone, but about not letting your iPhone own you.
Precisely. Beautifully put. And then absolutely central to all of this, weaving through it all, is deep meditation, or dhyana.
Meditation. Okay. What's the Upanishad's angle on this?
It's described as the sustained practice of quieting the mind. But crucially, it's not about thinking about truth or God.
Right. Not intellectualizing.
No. And it's not just chanting affirmations or struggling intensely with concentration, which can often just create more tension. It's about creating a still, clear space within, allowing the mind's chatter to settle down so that the truth can reveal itself directly, beyond concepts and thoughts.
Because the truth is beyond thought.
Exactly. The Upanishad emphasizes that ultimate truth is achintya, unthinkable, because no thought can grasp its totality, and avyakta, the unmanifest, the reality that hides within forms but isn't limited to them.
So meditation is the way to access that.
It's the practice of turning the senses inward, No longer chasing external objects for satisfaction, but resting in the very energy, the very awareness that makes perceiving possible in the first place.
Resting in awareness itself.
Yes. And this sustained contemplative practice, this deep resting, ultimately culminates in jnana,
Jnana, which is
direct experiential knowledge of the self, a knowing that permeates your entire being, far beyond mere intellectual understanding or belief. It's the aha moment becoming your lived reality.
wow. Faith, devotion, renunciation as inner release, meditation leading to direct knowledge. It's a comprehensive path.
It is. They all support and deepen each other.
And within this framework, the text venerates Lord Shiva. Now, for those who might view him simply as a deity from the Hindu pantheon, how does he fit into this ultimate reality? Is he just a specific god, or does he symbolize something much deeper within the Upanishads' teaching here?
That's a great question. Here, he's much more than a deity in the conventional sense. He's used as a profound living symbol. Lord Shiva is venerated not merely as a mythological figure, but as the personification and symbol of the supreme reality itself.
The Brahman.
Specifically, he represents the Nirguna Brahman, the formless, attributeless ultimate consciousness, the ground of being before any manifestation. He embodies the reality that permeates and transcends all phenomena, the pure consciousness that is beyond all descriptions, all distinctions, all dualities.
So contemplating Shiva means
So, when the Upanishad speaks of contemplating the self as Shiva, it means contemplating your own deepest essence as this vast, unchanging, formless consciousness. He serves as a powerful focal point, a symbol to help the mind grasp the ungraspable, a gateway to understanding the boundless, the beginningless, and the endless nature of reality and of your own true self.
okay, that makes sense. Using the form to point towards the formless.
As I say.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, because the Upanishad doesn't just lay out a truth, here it is, believe it. It actively points out what we commonly get wrong.
Yes, the critique aspect is very sharp.
It scrutinizes the fundamental blind spots in our ordinary perception, how we interact with the world and ourselves daily. How does this ancient text challenge the deeply ingrained assumptions we operate under without even realizing it?
And this raises that important question.
Yeah.
What assumptions are we operating under day in and day out that might be holding us back from this deeper truth? The Upanishad exposes several, and their resonance with modern life is, frankly, uncanny.
Like what? Give us the first one.
Okay, assumption 1. The self is the body or mind. This is huge. We spend so much of our lives identifying with our physical appearance, our thoughts, our emotions, our roles in life.
I am a lawyer. I am happy. I am fat.
Exactly. We say, I am hungry or I am sad, as if the body and the fluctuating mind are us, fundamentally. The Upanishad urges us to discard this identification through introspection. It highlights this persistent human error of identifying with these ephemeral, constantly changing forms. Our bodies change, our minds are restless, emotions fluctuate. If these are what we are, then we are inherently unstable and fundamentally anxious.
Because we're identified with something that's always changing and ultimately perishable.
Precisely. It's a call to look deeper, to find the unchanging witness behind the changes.
Right, we're constantly trying to fix our bodies, control our minds, manage our emotions, all under the belief that that's who we are, rather than understanding them as instruments we use or experiences we have.
Exactly. Their experiences passing through awareness, not the awareness itself. Then there's assumption 2. The world perceived through senses is ultimately real.
Okay, this one feels counterintuitive. The world feels pretty real.
It does. We take what we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell as the absolute objective truth. We build our entire functional understanding of reality on sensory data, don't we?
Of course. How else would we navigate?
But the Upanishad suggests that this perception, while functional, is rooted in Maya. That illusory power we mentioned, which creates the appearance of duality and multiplicity. It's not necessarily saying the world isn't real in a relative sense. It clearly has consequences. You bump into a wall, it hurts. But it suggests our sensory experience of it is not the ultimate foundational reality.
Back to the movie analogy.
Kind of. It's like watching a vivid, immersive movie. The movie feels real within its own context, but it's not the ultimate reality of the projector, the light, the screen that allows it to appear. It's a convincing projection, but a projection nonetheless.
So what we experience with our senses is more like a projection, filtered through our minds and senses, rather than the source reality itself. If Maya creates this perception of duality and separateness, does the Upanishad offer any tools or insights into how we begin to discern this illusion from ultimate reality? Or how to navigate a world that feels so undeniably real in its distinctness?
Absolutely. That's precisely where the practices of deep meditation, dhyana, and introspection come in. They are the means prescribed to quiet the mind, sharpen awareness, and begin to see through the projections. By withdrawing energy from constant external focus and turning inward, you start to perceive the screen, the awareness itself, rather than just being lost in the movie. It's about cultivating discernment, seeing the relative reality for what it is without denying its functional aspects, but also recognizing its deeper source.
Okay, so the practices are the tools for discernment. What's the third assumption?
Assumption 3. External rituals or material gains can grant salvation or lasting happiness. This is a huge one for our consumer-driven, achievement-oriented society.
Definitely. Buy this, achieve that, follow these steps, then you'll be happy.
We're constantly bombarded with messages that acquiring more, achieving higher status, or even following certain external religious or self-help protocols will bring us lasting satisfaction, peace, or salvation. The Upanishad, however, insists on inner transformation instead. It says true freedom and lasting peace don't come from anything outside of us, not possessions, not status, not even religious observance if it lacks inner realization. They arise from a fundamental shift within, a change in our perception and our very being.
And the relevance today is just striking. Our modern obsessions with physical appearance, the endless chase for material success, seeking constant sensory gratification through entertainment, food, social media, these are all directly called into question by these ancient critiques, aren't they?
Absolutely. It feels like the Upanishad saw us coming millennia ago. It identified these fundamental human tendencies to seek fulfillment externally and warned against the very pitfalls we see amplified in modern culture today.
It feels like it provides a timeless antidote, as you said, to the existential anxieties and fragmented identities that seem so prevalent now, where people feel lost or incomplete despite having so much externally.
It really does. It invites us to find our ground not in what we acquire or achieve, but in who we fundamentally are, beneath all the layers.
And these critiques, they're deeply embedded in the philosophical foundations, right? The non-duality, Advaita Vedanta, that the Upanishad embodies.
Yes, exactly. The fundamental assertion, as we discussed, is the Atman is Brahman. The individual soul is not different in essence from the supreme reality. The apparent differences are based on ignorance, avidya, of one's true nature.
Ignorance being the veil of Maya.
Precisely, Maya is the power that projects the illusion of separateness. So Advaita means that at our deepest core, we are not separate islands. We are intrinsically interconnected with everything and everyone. We are the ocean.
And how does this understanding connect to our everyday states of consciousness? We're usually only aware of being awake or asleep, maybe dreaming sometimes. What does the Upanishad say about these states?
That's another fascinating area. The Upanishad is very keen on transcending the three states of consciousness that we typically cycle through. It acknowledges the waking state, Tigrat, where we perceive the external world through our senses.
Normal everyday life.
Yep. Then the dreaming state, Swapna, where we experience an internal subjective world created by the mind.
Also familiar.
And the deep sleep state, Sushupti, which is dreamless. It's often described as an experience of blissful unawareness, a temporary return to the undifferentiated source, but without conscious realization.
Right, you feel rested but don't remember anything.
Exactly. But the Upanishad points beyond these three to Turiya, sometimes called the fourth state, though it's really the background of all three.
Turiya. What is that?
It's the transcendental state. It's not just another state within the mind, like waking or dreaming. It is the pure, unchanging awareness that underlies and illuminates all those other states, untouched by their coming and going. Think of it again as the screen on which the movies of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep play out. The screen itself remains pristine and unaffected by the dramas, the joys, the terrors displayed upon it. Turiya is that ever-present, silent, witnessing consciousness itself.
So it's not another dream or a deeper sleep, but something entirely different, a foundational awareness that's always there, even when we're completely engrossed in the movie and unaware of the screen.
Exactly. And realizing that awareness as your true nature is key to liberation.
Okay. And then we have the concepts of Maya and karma. We've touched on Maya, the illusory power. How does karma fit into this non-dual understanding?
Well, Maya, as we said, is that power creating the perception of duality, sustaining worldly experiences and attachments. It's crucial to grasp it's not necessarily unreal like a hallucination, but relatively real. It functions within the framework of our perception, but it's not ultimately real compared to the unchanging Brahman. It's the grand cosmic play, the illusion that makes the one appear as many.
And karma, the law of cause and effect.
Yes, karma is the universal law of cause and effect. Actions, thoughts, intentions, they all create consequences, ripples that bind us to the cycle of experience, the cycle of birth and death, samsara. Our current situation is seen as the result of past karma, and our present actions shape our future. However, and this is key, the enlightened being, the one who has realized the self, Atman as Brahman, and seen through the veil of Maya, is understood to be beyond these forces.
Beyond karma.
Because their actions are no longer rooted in egoic desire, ignorance, or attachment. They act, but without the sense of a separate doer seeking personal gain. Therefore, their actions don't generate new binding karma, and the old karma is gradually exhausted or burnt up in the fire of knowledge we talked about earlier. They become free from the cycle.
So realizing the self frees you from the consequences of action, in a sense.
From the binding consequences, yes. From the karmic chains that perpetuate the cycle of suffering and rebirth. And all of this points back to the fundamental rejection of duality. The Upanishad relentlessly emphasizes the unity of all in one indivisible consciousness. It systematically dismantles the perceived duality between subject and object, self and other, the perceiver and the perceived. It insists these are mental constructs, not ultimate reality.
But this realization, it's not just an intellectual game, right? You can't just think your way there.
Absolutely not. This requires experiential knowing, a direct, lived understanding that transforms your very perception of reality. It's about moving from, I believe this might be true, to, I know this is true, through direct inner experience, often cultivated through the path we discussed, faith, devotion, meditation.
Okay, so we've laid out these revolutionary ideas, really challenged our ingrained beliefs about who we are and what's real. But for many listeners, the natural nutty question is, okay, sounds profound, but how do I actually live this? Let's shift from the theory to the practical journey towards this union, this liberation. It really sounds like a living experience, not just a philosophy to debate.
It absolutely is a living experience. The philosophy points the way, but the journey is lived. The Upanishad outlines those 4 steps, or maybe better described as 4 interconnected aspects of practice that lead towards this union. We touched on them briefly, but let's dive deeper into how they manifest as a living path, day by day.
Great. Let's start again with faith shraddha. You called it tender courage. How does that play out practically?
Practically, it means starting with an openness. It means not immediately shutting down ideas that challenge your current worldview just because they seem strange or unprovable by conventional means. It's having the courage to suspend disbelief long enough to explore, to perhaps try a meditation practice or read the text with an open heart, even if your rational mind has doubts. It's that inner conviction, however small initially, that allows you to step onto the spiritual path even when you don't have all the answers mapped out. Without that initial leap, that willingness, the door remains closed.
It's like that seed analogy again. It doesn't need proof it will become a tree. It just has that inherent drive and openness to what's possible. It's an intimate connection beyond reason, essential for the spiritual path to even begin.
That's a perfect analogy. It's an inner impulse towards truth. And from this budding faith, as it's nurtured devotion or bhakti, naturally arises and deepens.
And devotion practically means chanting, praying.
It can involve those things for some, but its essence is broader. It's when faith matures into love. A love for the process, a love for the truth you're seeking, and eventually a love for existence itself. Practically, it transforms your attitude. You start seeing everything challenges, joys, ordinary moments as part of the divine play, as opportunities for growth or expressions of that underlying reality. The separation between sacred and secular starts to dissolve. Life becomes softer, more flowing. Even mundane tasks, as we said, like washing dishes or commuting, can become imbued with a sacred quality because your heart is bowing to existence itself in that moment. It shifts motivation from obligation or desire to reverence and love.
That makes perfect sense. If you see everything as interconnected as part of this divine reality, then every interaction becomes, in a way, an act of devotion. But then we move from this heartfelt emotional space into meditation or dhyana. How does that fit in, especially if devotion is already making life feel sacred? Is it a different gear?
It is a different, though complementary gear. Devotion opens the heart. Meditation quiets the mind. Both are needed. As described here, meditation, dhyana, is not primarily about thinking about God or truth. It's not analyzing concepts.
Okay.
Nor is it about just chanting specific ideas over and over, or even struggling intensely with concentration, which can sometimes be counterproductive. It's about creating that inner space where thinking itself falls silent, or at least recedes into the background. The restless surface of the mind grows still, like a lake on a calm day. And in that stillness, the deeper ocean beneath reveals its inherent clarity.
So the aim is silence.
The aim is the clarity revealed by the silence. Remember, the Upanishad says ultimate truth is achintya, unthinkable, and avyakta, unmanifest. It cannot be captured by thought. Meditation, then, is the practice of turning the senses inward, as we discussed, letting go of the constant outward focus, resting in the aware presence itself, the energy that perceives. In this deep silence, the self begins to reveal its true essence, vast, boundless, peaceful, free beyond all mental concepts.
And when all these elements coalesce, faith, devotion, meditation, you arrive at union or yoga. And you clarified this isn't just about the physical postures we see in classes today.
Right. In this Upanishadic context, yoga is much bigger. It's the active flowering of freedom, a deep science of wholeness that harmonizes body, mind, and spirit. It's when the profound silence and clarity cultivated in dedicated meditation practice begin to naturally spread out into your daily life. So that walking, working, speaking, relating, even being silent, all carry the fragrance of that inner stillness, that connection to the eternal. It brings the scattered fragments of your being, your physical sensations, your emotional energies, your mental processes, your spiritual intuition into one integrated, harmonious whole. It's a state of unshakable balance and integration.
I love that image of the silence spreading into daily life, transforming everything from the inside out. It's not just a practice you do for 20 minutes, but a state of being that permeates everything.
That's the goal, yes.
Yeah.
Integrate.
The Upanishad uses that powerful metaphor we mentioned earlier, the fire of knowledge, ignited by rubbing two sticks. Can you elaborate on that a bit more? What does that fire do?
Yes, it's a beautiful and potent metaphor for the inner purification that happens on this path. So the lower stick represents your own self, the individual Atman, your inherent potential, maybe currently dormant.
Okay.
The upper stick is Om, the cosmic sound, the primal vibration, symbolizing Brahman, the ultimate reality.
Got it. Self and reality.
And the friction is generated by sustained contemplative practice, the consistent application of faith, devotion, meditation, self-inquiry. This steady rubbing eventually ignites a spark. That spark grows into the fire of knowledge, Jnana Agni. Now, this fire isn't just about gaining intellectual information. It metaphorically burns away the impurities. It consumes the dross, the ignorance, avidya, the deep-seated desires and attachments, vasanas, the illusions of separateness. Much like a physical fire consumes wood, leaving only pure ash.
So it purifies the mind.
It purifies the mind, clarifies perception, burns away the karmic seeds, and reveals the true, unblemished self that was always there, beneath the layers of conditioning and identification. It's a transformative, cleansing fire.
That brings to mind the whole purification aspect. It sounds like quite a bit of inner work involved. Does the Upanishad give practical guidance on how to actually undertake this deep meditation, this dhyana? What are the nuts and bolts?
It does indeed. And the guidance is remarkably practical and psychologically insightful, showing a deep understanding of the human condition. One key aspect mentioned is solitude.
Meaning locking yourself away?
Not necessarily just the physical absence of other people, although finding quiet time is helpful. It points to a deeper inner freedom from the constant voices, expectations, and chatter of the world, both external and internalized. It's about intentionally disconnecting from the noise, outer distractions, inner mental loops to find your own center, creating an internal sanctuary where you can truly listen to your deeper self undisturbed.
Okay, inner solitude. What else?
Then there's posture. The Upanishad advises finding a stable, comfortable posture. The spine should be straight, but not rigid, the head aligned, the body held with a relaxed poise.
Why is posture so important for meditation?
It's not just about discipline for its own sake. The body's stillness directly supports the mind's stillness. They are deeply interconnected. If the body's fidgety and uncomfortable, the mind will likely be too. And interestingly, modern science is increasingly recognizing how posture, breath patterns, and even subtle energy circulation directly influence our state of consciousness. The ancients understood this intuitively.
That's fascinating.
A stable, aligned posture allows life energy, what they call prana, to flow more freely, particularly upwards along the spine. This upward movement is associated with heightened awareness, transforming raw life energy into higher consciousness, facilitating deeper and more sustained meditative states. It's recognizing the body as a crucial instrument, a vessel for consciousness.
That's a really interesting connection to modern understanding. It shows how this ancient wisdom often has a physiological or scientific basis we're only now rediscovering or validating. And what about cleansing? That sounds like a big undertaking. What needs cleansing?
Cleansing is seen as paramount, and it applies to both the body and the heart or the emotional center. Cleansing the body here doesn't just mean hygiene. It refers more to releasing suppressed emotional heaviness baggage that literally gets stored in the body as tension, tightness, or even illness.
How do you do that?
The source suggests allowing natural release mechanisms, things like allowing yourself to cry fully when grief arises, or even finding safe ways to express pent-up anger, maybe screaming into a pillow or into emptiness, not directed at anyone but simply as a catharsis. A healthy release of accumulated emotional poison and tension. After such a release, the body feels lighter, more alive, less burdened. This makes it much easier to sit in stillness and experience inner peace. It isn't about being out of control. It's about consciously creating a space for necessary emotional discharge so it doesn't fester.
That makes sense. Releasing the pressure valve. What about cleansing the heart?
Cleansing the heart is about actively cultivating positive emotional states and releasing negative ones. We're talking about intentionally developing qualities like compassion, karuna, friendliness or loving kindness, maitri, joy and the well-being of others, mudita, and maintaining equanimity or inner balance, upeksha, amidst life's ups and downs. Simultaneously, it's about consciously working to free the heart from the constricting grip of habitual anger, jealousy, resentment, and deep-seated grief. The aim is to make the heart like a clear, unruffled lake, capable of perfectly reflecting the divine, the true self, without distortion from turbulent emotions. This inner purification creates the emotional spaciousness necessary for devotion and deep meditation to truly flourish.
That's a beautiful image, the clear lake reflecting the divine. And what about the role of a teacher, a guru, in this whole process? Is it considered essential, or can one find this path entirely alone?
The Upanishad, and the tradition generally, suggest that the role of the guru is incredibly significant, though perhaps not in the way we might initially think. The guru isn't primarily an intellectual master, simply imparting information or dogma.
What is their role then?
Rather, the true guru acts as a living mirror, reflecting back to you your own inherent possibility, your own divine nature, which you might not yet see in yourself. In the presence, in the company, satsang, of such a being, one often glimpses what seems impossible. You get a taste of truth, a subtle transmission, a pulse of the eternal that awakens something dormant within you. It inspires faith and courage.
So it's about transmission, not just instruction.
Often, yes, a kind of energetic resonance. So vowing to a guru, in this context, isn't about submitting your will to another person in a subservient way. It's about bowing to the recognition of your own future flowering, acknowledging the potential that lies within you, which has been made visible, made believable through their example. They don't give you the truth. They help you recognize the truth already resonant within you.
That's a powerful distinction, seeing the guru as a catalyst, a mirror, not just a lecturer. Okay, and finally, let's revisit renunciation, or tyaga. We keep coming back to this because it's so easily misunderstood. When we hear renunciation, we often think of giving up everything tangible, living in poverty, stripping ourselves bare. But the Upanishad, especially through commentaries like Osho's, offers a much deeper, more liberating angle, right?
You're absolutely right to keep circling back to it because it's crucial and often misinterpreted. What's fascinating and deeply practical is that true renunciation, as presented here, is not fundamentally about throwing things away or deliberately cultivating lack. That would just be another form of attachment to not having, attachment to an image of being spiritual.
Right, like spiritual materialism.
Right. Exactly. Renunciation, as Osho insightfully notes in his commentary, is not about giving up wealth, but about releasing one's hold on it. It's not about giving up relationships, but releasing the clinging, possessive aspect of them. The point is never the object itself, whether it's money, power, reputation, possessions, relationships, or even strongly held opinions. The issue is always the clinging, the psychological grip, the insistence, the sense of I need this to be okay, the claim of ownership that creates bondage and fear.
So how does one release the hold?
It's an inner relaxation, a seeing through, realizing that nothing was ever truly ours to begin with in an absolute sense. Everything is temporary, flowing, borrowed from existence. True renunciation is simply relaxing this inner grip. This inner release is what makes the soul light. The Source describes it beautifully. Poor in outer claims, but rich in peace. You're no longer constantly demanding things from existence, and you're no longer trembling at the thought of loss because you're not desperately holding on. It's a profound shift from a state of grasping and fear to a state of inner freedom, trust, and contentment, where you can fully participate in life without being psychologically bound by it.
Poor in outer claims, rich in peace. That's memorable. It allows you to engage with the world from a place of fullness, not lack.
Precisely. That's the essence of Tyaga.
It's really remarkable how these ancient teachings, these practices we've discussed, and these profound philosophical insights continue to resonate so powerfully across millennia. Let's talk more explicitly now about the specific ways this ageless wisdom applies directly to our modern world. How does this ancient text offer a genuine antidote to our very contemporary anxieties and pressures?
Well, I think it offers a potent antidote to modern anxieties and materialism precisely because it addresses the root causes, not just the symptoms. Our modern world is so dominated by external distractions, isn't it?
Huh?
Constant digital stimulation, the relentless pursuit of material accumulation from the latest gadgets to these unattainable lifestyles portrayed online.
Absolutely, the pressure is immense.
And the Upanishad's core teaching encourages, almost demands, turning inward for peace and for an authentic sense of identity. It directly confronts the existential anxieties, the feelings of fragmentation, emptiness, or not enoughness that plague contemporary life, even for people who seem to have everything externally. People often feel lost, overwhelmed, or incomplete despite having material comfort, endless connectivity, countless choices. This teaching invites us to find our ground not in what we acquire or how many likes we get online, but in who we fundamentally are at our deepest core, which it says is already whole and complete.
So, what does this all mean for our modern identities? The ones we painstakingly construct through our careers, our possessions, our curated social media personas. It sounds like a direct challenge to all of that.
It absolutely is a direct challenge to contemporary assumptions about the nature of self and reality. It fundamentally questions our cultural fixation on external success as the primary measure of human worth. It questions our reliance on fleeting sensory gratification as the main source of happiness. And crucially, it challenges the deep-seated belief in separateness, me versus you, us versus them, which fuels so much competition, conflict, prejudice, and environmental destruction.
How does it challenge that separateness?
By asking, do these fragmented identities we construct based on personality, ego, external roles, group affiliations truly suffice? Are they the whole story of who we are? Or is there a deeper, unifying consciousness that underlies all existence? It powerfully invites reflection on the nature of consciousness and being itself, urging us to look beyond the often narrow limitations of scientific materialism, which tends to reduce reality only to what can be measured and observed externally, often missing the inner dimension, the subjective experience, the quality of being, entirely.
That's a really important point. It's asking us to value the inner world as much or even more than the outer.
Yes. And furthermore, the Upanishad's strong emphasis on mental purification and meditation finds striking parallels with modern mindfulness practices and psychological well-being techniques. These are gaining widespread recognition now, even in corporate wellness programs, schools, and clinical settings.
Right, mindfulness is everywhere.
And practices like mindfulness, self-compassion training, certain cognitive therapies, they share the goal of cultivating mental clarity, emotional balance, resilience, and a sense of inner peace. They clearly offer benefits. The Upanishad's approach, however, grounds these benefits in a much deeper spiritual context. It's not just about stress reduction or better focus for productivity. It aims for liberation, promoting not just resilience and clarity, but ultimately inner freedom from the fundamental causes of suffering itself, which it identifies as ignorance and egoic attachment. It moves beyond mere symptom management to root cause transformation.
So it offers a deeper why behind the what of these practices. And beyond individual well-being, does this philosophy of oneness have broader implications for how we interact as a society, especially given how polarized and conflicted our world often feels today?
Absolutely. The core teaching that Atman is Brahman, the non-dual oneness of all beings, naturally has profound ethical implications. It's not just a metaphysical concept, it's a foundation for ethics. When you begin to truly realize or even just deeply contemplate that your deepest self is intrinsically linked to the deepest self of every other being, every animal, every part of nature, well, it inherently fosters compassion, empathy, and a profound sense of interconnectedness. How can you intentionally harm another if you see them as fundamentally part of yourself?
It shifts the whole basis of interaction.
It really does. This realization can dramatically reduce conflict and prejudice, which are almost always born from separative thinking. The illusion that my well-being is separate from yours, or that my group, nation, religion, race, etc., is superior to or threatened by your group. It promotes a universal ethics of care, rooted in shared being, where harming another or the planet is understood viscerally as harming a part of yourself.
So it's not just about achieving personal liberation and isolation, but about potentially transforming our collective interactions, leading towards a more harmonious and compassionate society. That's a powerful implication.
It's inherent in the philosophy, yes.
And what about those elements of faith and devotion? How do they fit into a modern, often quite secular spiritual landscape where skepticism is common and sometimes spirituality gets reduced to techniques?
That's a relevant question. I think the Upanishad's perspective on faith, Shraddha, and
Hmm.
devotion, Bhakti, adds immense depth to contemporary spiritual practice. In a world where spirituality can sometimes become overly intellectualized, just collecting concepts or reduced to mere self-help techniques for personal gain, or even empty rituals.
Right. Spirituality is another self-improvement project.
Exactly. This text reintroduces the vital importance of heartfelt commitment, that tender courage to trust something beyond the purely rational and cultivating a deep love and reverence for existence itself. It moves beyond superficial understanding or practice to an integrated experiential approach where the heart and mind are both fully engaged. This can enrich personal spiritual journeys immensely, making them more authentic, more profound, and truly transformative, integrating our emotional and intuitive capacities with our intellect rather than prioritizing one over the others.
That's a powerful reminder that wholeness includes the heart, not just the head. Finally, thinking about all this, the Upanishad also prompts us to consider modern meditation and spiritual movements. How are they, in your view, fulfilling or perhaps interpreting or maybe even misinterpreting this ancient promise of renunciation as inner release and inner peace? Where might they align and where might they fall short?
That's a complex and fascinating area for reflection, definitely. Modern movements, particularly in the West, while often drawing inspiration from these ancient texts like the Upanishads, inevitably adapt them for a very different cultural context, often a highly individualistic, consumer-driven society. Sometimes the focus can shift towards stress reduction, enhancing performance, achieving a sense of calm, or personal growth, all valuable things, of course. But the Upanishad's profound call for inner renunciation, that radical releasing one's hold on egoic attachments and the illusion of separateness, that's a much deeper, more challenging demand.
It's less comfortable, maybe.
It can be, yes. It asks for a fundamental shift in identity, not just symptom relief. So we can reflect. Do modern interpretations always capture this depth of inner release? Or do they sometimes repackage these practices in ways that are more palatable, focusing more on temporary well-being or self-optimization without fully addressing the deeper spiritual liberation, the Kaivalya, the supreme independence that the Upanishad advocates? It encourages us to look critically at whether these movements are truly leading towards that state of unshakable inner freedom or sometimes just providing temporary respite from the pressures of modern life without fundamentally challenging the root causes of our attachment, ignorance, and suffering as defined by the text. It's a question worth pondering for anyone on a path.
That's a great point, distinguishing between temporary relief and fundamental transformation. Okay, this Upanishad clearly presents us with some truly profound questions, the kind that can make you think differently about absolutely everything. These aren't just academic puzzles, they feel like questions that can genuinely reshape our understanding of our own existence and our place in the cosmos. Let's delve into some of these philosophical deep dives.
Absolutely. And they are deep dives. One of the central tenets, as we've hammered home, is this non-dual oneness, Atman is Brahman. But this immediately raises a huge question for reflection. If the individual self is truly one with absolute consciousness, how on earth do the multiplicities arise? How do we get distinct personalities, individual egos, such diverse experiences of joy and suffering? If everything is ultimately Brahman, why do we experience ourselves so vividly as separate, distinct beings with unique histories, preferences, pains, and life stories?
Yeah, where does the many come from if there's only one?
Exactly. What then is the ontological status of the world we perceive? Is it ultimately real in its diversity? Is it completely unreal, just a dream? Or is it, as often suggested, only relatively real? This is the central paradox of non-duality that the Upanishad forces us to contemplate. How can the absolute seamless oneness coexist with the observable, undeniable diversity and multiplicity of life? It's an invitation to contemplate the very nature of illusion, Maya, and reality, and to constantly look beyond superficial appearances.
That's a huge question, probably the core question, right? Gets to the heart of our entire experience. If we're all one wave, why do we feel so much like individual separate waves?
Precisely.
And speaking of the path we outlined, faith, devotion, meditation, can those alone suffice? Can you just feel devoted and meditate your way to liberation without grappling with the deeper metaphysical knowledge like Atman is Brahman? Or is that knowledge, that jnana, the ultimate liberator? And what exactly is its role in relation to the practices?
That's another critical inquiry the Upanishad encourages. The text suggests a profound interplay. Devotion purifies the heart, melts the ego, and prepares the ground. Meditation stills the mind, concentrates energy, and makes it receptive. But ultimately, the tradition generally holds that it's the direct knowledge jnana, the unshakable realization of Atman as Brahman, that cuts the root of ignorance and brings final liberation. It's not just about feeling good or having peaceful meditative experiences, valuable as those are. It's about knowing with certainty the truth of who you are, a knowing that permeates your entire being and leaves no room for doubt or the old identifications.
So knowledge is the final key.
It's often presented that way as the fire that burns the seeds of ignorance. This also leads to the question, what then is the role of rituals, practices, and external religion once this knowledge of the self is attained? Do they become irrelevant? Or do they perhaps transform into something else, maybe a spontaneous, joyous expression of that realized unity, rather than a means to an end?
Interesting. The practice changes its meaning.
Potentially, yes. Furthermore, the Upanishad prompts to ask, can liberation be partial or fleeting? Can you be a little bit liberated? Or does true liberation, true Kaivalya, entail a permanent and irreversible state? The text strongly implies a complete ultimate freedom that transcends the cycle of birth and death entirely. This suggests that anything less than permanent, unshakable inner independence and non-identification isn't the final goal. It's not a temporary high or a weekend retreat feeling. It's a fundamental, irreversible shift in being.
Okay, and once a being is liberated, hypothetically, once they've transcended these dualities and recognized their oneness with all, what are their responsibilities then? Do ethics still apply in the same way, or do they somehow transcend even conventional morality?
Precisely. That's a profound ethical question. How does the recognition of the self as Shiva, as the ultimate non-dual reality, influence the ethical responsibilities and actions of a liberated being who sees beyond duality? If there is truly no other in the ultimate sense, then compassion wouldn't be a moral obligation imposed from outside, would it? It would seem to be a natural, spontaneous outflow of recognizing shared being. The Upanishad suggests such a being acts not from egoic desire or a sense of duty based on rules, but from a profound, inherent understanding of interconnectedness. Their actions would naturally align with the well-being of the whole because they are the whole.
So action arises spontaneously from wisdom, not from rules.
That's the implication. And finally, grappling with all these concepts inevitably invites us to interrogate the limits of our own tools, the limits of language and thought in expressing the absolute. How can we possibly speak adequately of that which the text itself calls unthinkable, achintya, and unmanifest, avyakta? It forces us to acknowledge the inherent inadequacy of words and concepts. They can point, they can guide, but they can't capture the territory itself.
Language falls short.
It has to. And ultimately, perhaps the biggest challenge the Kaivalya Upanishad leaves us with is a practical and philosophical one. How do we live the paradox? How do we manage to be both fully in the world, engaging with its experiences, relationships, joys, sorrows, responsibilities, and simultaneously transcending it internally, never losing sight of that deeper, silent, non-dual reality? That dance between the relative and the absolute might be the essence of the past itself.
Living the paradox, that's a great way to put it. Okay, to help us get a better feel for this ultimate reality, this non-dual state, the Upanishad uses incredibly powerful symbolism, and Lord Shiva, as you mentioned, stands out. How does his rich, sometimes paradoxical imagery help us grasp these very abstract, non-dual concepts?
The symbolism around Shiva is incredibly deep and designed precisely to break our conventional dualistic thinking. The Upanishad uses many names and forms to point to the ultimate reality, but Shiva embodies this synthesis of opposites perhaps most powerfully. Take, for instance, his form as Ardhanarishwar, depicted as half man, half woman in one body.
Right, I've seen images of that.
This isn't just some curious mythological depiction. It signifies that masculine and feminine, energy and consciousness, form and emptiness are not fundamental divisions, but complementary aspects of the one reality. It represents the perfect union of all opposites within the absolute. It shows that the ultimate truth transcends gender, transcends duality, transcends every category our minds try to impose. It holds everything in a unified, non-dual embrace. It is the wholeness of existence.
Wow. That's a powerful image for non-duality. What else?
Then there's his epithet, Nilakanth, the blue-throated, remember the story? During the churning of the cosmic ocean by gods and demons, a deadly poison, halahala, emerged, threatening to destroy all creation. Shiva, out of compassion, drinks the poison, but holds it in his throat, which turns blue. He neutralizes it, saving the world. He survives. This symbolizes the immense courage, stability, and fearlessness of one who knows their true nature is immortal. Only the immortal, the one who has realized their deathless self, can face and assimilate the poisons of life. Negativity, suffering, challenges, even death itself without being destroyed by them. Their true essence remains untouched. It's a powerful metaphor for developing the capacity to embrace all of life's experiences, light and dark, from a place of absolute inner stability and non-identification with the transient.
That's a beautiful way to understand that symbolism not as a literal feat of poison drinking, but as a deep spiritual truth about meeting adversity from a place of inner freedom. And he's often depicted with three eyes, isn't he? What does that signify?
Yes, his three eyes are profoundly symbolic. The two ordinary eyes, like ours, perceive the dualistic world, the world of distinctions, separations, appearances, here and there, good and bad, past and future, me and you.
The world we normally live in.
Exactly. But the third eye, often depicted vertically on his forehead, represents a different kind of vision. It goes beyond this ordinary, fragmented, dualistic perception. It symbolizes intuitive wisdom, the eye of knowledge, Jnana Chaksu, which penetrates appearances and sees the underlying unity behind all opposites. It's the vision of non-duality itself, the ability to see the one manifesting as the many, to perceive the formless essence within all forms. It's the awakening of direct, unmediated perception of the ultimate reality that is unmanifest yet permeates everything.
So the third eye is the eye of wisdom, seeing beyond duality.
Precisely. And ultimately, what all these rich symbols tirelessly point back to is the Upanishad's core insistence. Reality is Advaita non-dual without a second. Duality, the feeling of separation, is fundamentally a creation of the mind, a projection of Maya. Our mind constantly constructs categories, good, bad, pleasant, unpleasant, sacred, profane, life, death.
Yeah.
But in the real essence, the Upanishad asserts, there is only one seamless, indivisible, conscious whole.
And
This truth is utterly beyond time. It has no beginning, no middle, and no end. It wasn't created, it can't be destroyed, it simply is. It is pure consciousness, awareness itself, and its nature is described as Satchitananda, existence, consciousness, and bliss, absolute. Bliss not as fleeting pleasure, but as the inherent peace and fullness of being itself, beyond measure. It's the silent, unchanging substratum of everything, the witness to all phenomena.
And to experience this directly, to realize this truth, it sounds like something within us has to fundamentally change or perhaps dissolve. What is that something that needs to go?
Absolutely. The text is clear. To realize this non-dual truth, the primary obstacle, the ego, must dissolve.
The ego, meaning our sense of self.
Meaning the limited, constricted sense of a separate self. The I which clings, which identifies, I am my body, I am my thoughts, I am my role. The I which constantly claims, this is mine, my achievements, my possessions, my beliefs, my relationships, even my suffering. This ingrained sense of being a separate, isolated entity must vanish.
Vanish, that sounds drastic, like annihilation.
It's often described poetically that way, but it's perhaps better understood not as a violent annihilation, but as a gentle letting go, a seeing through of its illusory nature, a relaxation of the constant inner grip of me and mine. It's about shifting identification, moving from the limited, insistent perspective of this is mine to the vast, open perspective of this is his, using devotional language, or simply this is, recognizing everything as a manifestation of the one reality arising and passing within consciousness. When that egoic identification dissolves, then the seeker naturally merges with Brahman, not like a separate entity joining something larger, but like that drop of water finally fully realizing it is the ocean itself, no longer feeling like a tiny vulnerable drop tossed about by fear and desire, but recognizing its own boundless oceanic nature. It's a complete, liberating identification with the universal consciousness.
So let's circle all the way back. What does this all mean for that original idea of aloneness of Kaivalya? It started with a word that sounded potentially negative, like loneliness, being cut off. But having gone through all this, where does it land us?
It lands us at the ultimate culmination, the deepest and most positive understanding of that term. Kaivalya is the recognition and embodiment of a supreme, inherent independence. The soul, the true self, shines by itself. It needs nothing from outside because it recognizes its own inherent fullness and completeness. It fears nothing because it recognizes its immortal, unchanging nature beyond birth and death. It's attached to nothing because it has released its psychological grip on all transient forms and experiences. Yet paradoxically, because it knows its oneness with everything, it embraces all. It's not the aloneness of separation, but the all-oneness of unity. It's not loneliness, which, as we said at the start, is a painful feeling of lack, a yearning for external connection to fill an inner void. Instead, Kaivalya is a state of profound fullness. It's the deep, unshakable understanding that nothing is missing, that our very core, our deepest essence, is already complete, whole, and perfectly self-sufficient, lacking nothing. It's the discovery of an infinite inner richness that external circumstances can never diminish or enhance. It is absolute freedom.
Wow. Supreme independence born from realizing ultimate oneness. What an incredible deep dive. We've journeyed through the ancient wisdom of the Kaivalya Upanishad, exploring its profound philosophy, its really sharp critique of our common assumptions about self and reality, and its incredibly practical step-by-step path towards inner peace and self-realization.
It truly does offer a timeless antidote, doesn't it? To the fragmented identities, the pervasive anxieties, and the relentless materialism that often characterize our modern world. It really invites us, urges us, to look inward, to fundamentally question our deepest beliefs about who we are, and to discover the true boundless nature of reality that lies waiting within and all around us. It's a call to liberation that feels just as relevant, maybe even more relevant, today as it must have been millennia ago.
Absolutely. And as we conclude this deep dive, here's perhaps a thought for you, our listener, to ponder. The Kaivalya Upanishad whispers persistently that our deepest longing, that universal human longing to be deathless, truly free, and fundamentally whole, doesn't ultimately come from anything we collect or achieve externally. Not from possessions, not from status, not from experiences, not even from relationships if they're based on filling a perceived lack. It comes only when we have the courage to step beyond the confines of the ego, release our grip on separateness, and discover the timeless, boundless essence already present, right here, right now within us. So the question to reflect on might be, what does that possibility mean for your own journey of self-discovery right now? And perhaps what subtle attachments, what ways of defining yourself might you be ready to gently, tenderly begin to release your hold on?